Fight week is here and UFC 296 is this Saturday. We're going to make our predictions for the main card. But before we do, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So this is a massive card. It's stacked from the top to the bottom. But let's start with the top. Mark, we have Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I think Leon's going to come out on top. I could see a finish happening, a TKO, or I can see him edging out a decision. I think Colby's waited way too long. I know cardio is his best friend, but I don't. He's nowhere near got the power that Leon Edwards has. What do you think?
Yeah, I get what you're saying because Leon does have that great KO power, and there's a lot of that KO threat's gonna it's gonna really knock Colby back a little bit. But I am gonna go Colby Covington by decision. I think Leon's not going to be ready for what Colby's got to offer. I think we're going to see Colby do that little walk he does to the middle of the octagon as fast as possible, break that distance. He's going to keep Leon pressed against the cage for the whole fight. And he's just going to chain wrestle him for 5 rounds. And I think he's going to lose 1 round, and it's the first round. And after that, he's going to dominate the rest of the fight.
I think I was thinking about that, and I know that you can't really build an opinion straight off 1 round, but do you remember the Usman and Edwards, the one where Edwards actually, he fairly grappled Kamaru for a good while? That doesn't mean anything, but I'm just going off that in the sense that Edwards does have some grappling skills, quite a lot of them as well. But
yeah, Kamaru
and Colby, especially the number 1 fight, there was 0 grappling. Yeah. We could well be getting a striking fight. Yeah, I'd welcome either, to be honest, because it's great to see, high level guys going at it, whether it's grappling or striking. But I will say though, Dwain, that the excitement of this fight for me has minimized. It's not gone completely. I'm still going to tune in, but I don't know. It's just been a long time coming, hasn't it? It sounded good when it got released, and now it's coming. You're like, do any of them really deserve it? Just strip Leon and have these 2 fight 3 more fights before they even think about a title shot.
It has been long coming. It's a bit too long, but we'll talk about it in a minute. We'll go through our predictions because we'll bring that back up at the end. But I think we're going back to when you were talking about Leon having a lot of success with Usman. The reason he had so much success is because he's a dirty, cheating git. And Colby Covington is going to rat on him immediately. The second his fingers get in the gloves, Colby's snitching without hesitation. I genuinely don't think Leon's going to have any answers to Colby's wrestling. I think it's going to be consistent, heavy-paced, chain wrestling, non-stop. And I just do not think he's going to give him that movement, that space Leon needs to get off this headshot dead kick, because Leon's not actually got that many finishes on his sort of resume. I think actually him and Colby have the same amount of finishes. I think it's that close. So to sort of talk about Leon as he's this crazy, KO artist. Yeah, he had 1 big knockout. Let's not pretend he's some huge KO artist. But like you were saying earlier, Mark, when we had Usman versus Colby, 2 grapplers became strikers. In this fight, it really, really feels as though it's going to be striker versus grappler. Do you think that Colby is going to be able to deal with Leon's offense? And do you think that Leon is going to be able to deal with Colby's chain wrestling, his consistent chain wrestling?
Yeah, well, I think I'm contradicting myself, but I do believe that Leon and Colby are going to be surprised because the other one, how much they can hold their own. Colby is not a knockout artist, definitely not. But the amount of the pressure, the pace that he puts on for full 5 rounds, like we said earlier, cardio is his best friend. He can be peppering Leon. He can surprise him. If you're getting jabbed in the face for 25 minutes, just a jab, Dwain, it's not going to knock you out, but that's going to piss you off. It's going to take its toll on you, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
100%.
I honestly think I disagree with the Leon isn't going to be able to cope with Colby's wrestling. I think he's going to be able to hold his own, even if it's just stuffing a takedown to shock Colby and think, this isn't going to be just as easy as what he thinks. I think both fighters are going to be surprised. I'll just say I'm interested in the fight as a whole, but I think as a main event and for the title, I don't know. I just believe it's been a little bit too long. But in Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards, I'm interested. But as the main event for the last pay-per-view of the year, I think it's been a little bit too long.
Yeah, well, let's go on to another fight then with the co-main. Again, another title fight that's not that interesting in the sense of the division's not interesting. But we've got Pantoja versus Royval. This is going to be a fun fight. But Mark, what are your predictions for this fight and why?
I'm hoping that Pantoja can get it done so we can solidify a flyweight champion, to be honest. We can keep one and hopefully bring some life back to this division. There is life there, but, hopefully bring some respect, bring some stature to this division again. The flyweight division has the potential to be a really, really exciting division, as we've been exposed to over the past couple of years, just with other fights that, it is one of those, though, it's similar to another weight class where if they're not in the top 3 or 4, you've probably not really heard of them unless you're a die-hard fan and you've got no life or job or partner or anything like that, and all you do is just sit there reading through the UFC roster. But I think that, Pantoja can get it done and hopefully, bring some respect to this division again. It's the co-main event. That's good stature enough. But just for name value as well, because the world's going to be watching already. Great for the weight division, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going for Pantoja as well. They've fought before. This is the second time they've fought, and Pantoja submitted Royval. But I'm going to go decision this time. I think Royval's going to be so focused on defending that submission threat. If someone's finished you before in that way, you're going to be so focused on that. And I think he's going to be so focused on defense, he's not going to get any offense off. And I think he's going to lose a 5-round decision. And like you were saying before, if Pantoja wins, and even if Royval wins, where do we go from there? Because Brandon Moreno, he's got a match set up soon. He's likely going to win, and then it's going to be another rematch because he's fought Royval and Pantoja already. So this division is. It's just the division of rematches, isn't it? And I wonder why is that? Do you think it's because they're all so small and they don't rely necessarily on their physicality? It all becomes just a technical battle. And when it becomes that sort of war, it can go either way quite quickly, can't it? Like if we're both amazing, it can just swap like that so quick, right? Does it make sense?
I think that is a point, especially going off Marino and Figgy, the quadrilogy. But I also think it's because the division isn't that big, not physically, but just name value. Yeah. So the main event fighters, they do just seem to keep doing rematches because it's what sells, isn't it? If you got Pantoja versus Joe Bloggs, someone who no one's ever heard of in the flyweight division, that doesn't sell, does it?
No.
But with the bigger names, and you're like, oh, they fought before and he submitted him. There is all that, the story involved. I hope that we're moving out of this because no one wants to see rematches after rematches. Because I guarantee whoever wins this, just throw Kai Kara France in there and let him have another pop. Like if you get beat by the champion, it doesn't matter because you're going to get another title shot in 6 months anyway. So who really cares?
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue with this division. It doesn't matter if you lose. You're there chomping at the title literally a few months later. But there is some interesting people coming up. You've got Kai Kara France, Manel Cap. You've got that Felipe dos Santos. You've got a lot of people coming up. So hopefully it's going to be a fun division. Fingers crossed, but we'll have to wait and see. Then, Mark, it feels silly even asking you what your prediction for this next fight is. We have Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Wonderboy. What's your prediction for this fight, Mark?
Stephen Thompson, round 1 knockout.
You lying git.
No. It could happen. It could happen, but I don't think so. I really don't think it's going to happen. I think Shavkat, he could well and truly. I think, Shavkat could get a decision. I don't think it's as clear-cut obvious that he's going to get a finish because Wonderboy, he might be slightly aged, but he's still so dangerous. He's one of the slickest strikers the UFC's ever had. And I think, he's going to be well aware. He's got to be. He's got to be able to respect his opponents, doesn't he? Undefeated or not, you're still sitting in front of Wonderboy. No matter what his age is, look at the performances that he had last year against Kevin Holland. He's not an old man. He's
No.
still slick. But you've got to be careful. But I do still think that Shavkat's going to do it.
Yeah, I do as well. I think Shavkat is going to get a very dominant win here. I think even a second round submission. I think he's just going to overwhelm Wonderboy, unfortunately, with the grappling. He's going to take him down and just get him finished in the second. And it's a shame because I love Wonderboy and I'd love to see him get it done, but I just don't see it happening. But I will say, Jeff Neal, when he fought Shavkat, yeah, Shavkat won quite handedly, but Jeff Neal was giving Shavkat a lot of problems on the feet, a lot. And if Jeff Neal's doing that, if Wonderboy does it to you, you could be in a lot of trouble. So he's gonna have to play this really, really careful. And it's weird, isn't it? Talking about someone who dominated a fight, but going, oh, you have this slight issue there. So it kind of takes something away from Shavkat a little bit. And I worry about when he steps up, is he going to be able to handle that high level competition and the pressure of these high level strikers? But you know, so usually when we do grappler versus striker, you've at least got a puncher's chance. And you always think, right, you know, maybe, just maybe this person could get a flash KO. But Wonderboy's not known for having his finishing power, is he? You know, he's had a couple of TKOs, definitely. But I can't think of any big flash KOs he's had off the top of my head. So that kind of negates it in this fight. But do you think Wonderboy still has a puncher's chance, or do you think it's just completely out of the window?
I don't. I think he's got more than a puncher's chance. And I know it was a long time ago, but he has knocked out like Robert Whittaker when Whittaker used to fight at welterweight. But I think Stephen's best chance really is just pace, pressure, keep pressuring him. Don't forget, like he ended up, he beat Kevin Holland, a young prime Kevin Holland who's very good all round. Made him quit in the stool because he broke his hands. So, granted, that might not be Stephen's doing, but you understand what I'm saying.
So we've got to hope that Wonderboy's chin holds out, then Shavkat breaks his hand on his face, and Wonderboy can win that.
He's going to use his skull to break his wrist, is what he's going to do.
Matt, put a bet on that. Put a bet on. What are the odds of it on that?
I think he does have a chance, but obviously Jeff Neal is known for his boxing. Steve Thompson's mainly known for his kickboxing. So if he can creep one in, you know, he'll be the master, like Adesanya of like a question mark kick, that kind of stuff. So I think he could well pull it off, but you know, my heart's saying Stephen Thompson, my wallet is saying Shavkat Rakhmonov round 1 knockout.
Either way, it's going to be a fun fight, and I can't wait. But sort of talking about an older man coming up against a young contender, we have Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
We have mentioned this in a previous video. I believe Paddy is going to be able to submit Tony, maybe even in the second round, something like that. It's a big what if factor either way of this fight goes, but I think this is going to be Tony's send off, and I think this is going to be where the diehard Tony fans even call it a day, because they've been wittering on since Gaethje took his soul. They've been wittering on that Tony's going to come back, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, and we haven't seen a thing of it. I think this is going to be where they swallow the pride and just admit defeat.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm going exactly the same prediction as you. I'm going Paddy Pimblett, round 2 submission. I think the big problem with Tony is he used to be a great fighter, but he's just not that anymore. His fight IQ is diminished. His physicality is diminished. I think he's going to put his head in Paddy's arms for free. He's going to get choked out, just like he did with Nate Diaz and just the way he did with Bobby Green. I think the writing's on the wall. And I'm surprised that so many people are still picking Tony after this 6-fight losing streak. It's like you were saying, I just feel like Tony fans are clinging on to something that's not been there for a long time. But we'll talk about that in a minute once we've gone through the predictions for this fight. We've also got probably one of the most hated men on the roster, Ian Garry. He is going to be fighting Vicente Luque. Mark, what's your predictions for this fight and why?
It's a quick turnaround for Gary, isn't it? He was only battering Neil Magny a couple of weeks ago, it seems. I think Gary, but he's got his work cut out for him. Vicente Luque is no joke. And he's got to be so careful, especially if Vicente can get him down. Then he's just going to have to grind. This is a good test for him. I kind of want Ian Gary to be able to do it. Whether I like or dislike him doesn't matter. But just to throw some new names and contenders up the top of that division. Vicente Luque has always been floating around this kind of area, win, lose, or draw, and I think that Ian Gary could be a big, big name at the top of the welterweight division.
Yeah, he really, really could. And I'm the same as you. Even though I'm not a big fan of Ian Gary, I want him to win because if Luque wins, so what, right? Where does this go? Like, Luque's been this mid-card guy for a long, long time. He's not jumping up anytime soon, and then he'll probably lose his next fight anyway. Nobody cares. Whereas if Gary gets this done, it projects him up as a big name here. And I think I'm going to go Ian Gary decision. I don't think he's finishing Luque because I think Luque is going to be really focused on a grappling heavy game. He's going to just keep trying to get him down, but I think Ian Gary will pepper him up, but I don't think he'll get him finished. Because we've seen it before. Ian Gary's not bad on the ground, but you can tell it's where he's most worried. Like when he fought Neil Magny, he did not engage at all on the floor. He made it just get up, Neil, just get up. And Luque's got some good grappling. He's got a couple of submissions under his belt. So if he can get hold of Gary, that's it. He's done for, isn't he? But talking about Gary and sort of this big name, it seems such a shame because I hated Ian Gary and then I really liked him and I've come back to hating him again. And it feels like that for a lot of fans, right? It feels like he's now becoming one of the most disliked fighters on the roster. Do you think, Mark, he's kind of shot himself in the foot, especially the way he acted after the Neil Magny fight and the build-up to it?
It's the build-up during and after the Neil Magny fight. He didn't do himself any favours at all, did he? I think because you just think it was just so unjust, just unwarranted. Like, it wasn't as if there was bad blood or anything. It's so obvious that it's an act and just trying to create something, trying to get people to talk about him. I think the way that he could probably save it is maybe win, lose, or draw with Vicente Luque, just be as cool, calm, and collective, just be fine with whatever, respectful, all that. And I think you can win back some fans. I don't think he'd really care. No one really does bother that much about, like, if they're universally loved. Obviously, it might be nice to be, but at the same time, if there's such a contrast in your rise and now all of a sudden people hate you and you want to pull it back, I think he's just going to have to, he's going to have to show up in his next performance as, not an idiot.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? And you say, maybe Ian Gary doesn't care, but he's like put his Twitter as private and stuff, and he's been getting a lot of hate on there, and people have been giving his wife abuse and stuff, and I don't want to get into all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't overly interest me.
To be fair, there's a bit of a Will Smith situation going on there. It seems to be.
Colby Covington is gonna have a field day. Honestly, this is gonna be a scary, scary press conference. But I think fighters like Ian Gary, they sort of realize how strong the wind blows at the top of the mountain, right? It's really difficult up there. And if you take slightly the wrong footing, you're done for. So he's got to play it careful because if you want to be a big name, you have to be likable. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. This sport is entertainment first and foremost. If we don't like a fighter, we're not interested, we're not tuning in. That's just the way this game works. You have to be liked, or at least disliked so much that people are interested in watching you fight. Whereas I feel like it'll get to that point that people just not be interested at all, and they're not bothered. And you won't get that name value if you're not liked, I don't think.
Well, controversial figures, such as, say, even Conor or something, some people tune in because they love him. Some people tune in because they want to see him lose.
Yeah.
Which is beneficial either way. Hate mail is better than no mail. But if you're in that Bilal Muhammad turf, where you're just like, who's tuning in for you? You're the most unmemorable, forgettable fighter. Look, you're even turning away now. You're bored out of your mind. I've just mentioned his name.
He's terrible. It's just, it's not remember the name. It's forget the fight with Bilal. It's so dull. Who cares? And it's not enough, is it? You need to build a fan base because Dana White is not going to give you a title shot. If you're not getting people talking about you and people aren't interested, you ain't getting up to the top of the division. That's just the way it is. Dana does not care about the rankings. Does this fight sell? Yes or no? If the answer's no, I ain't putting it on. Overall, UFC 296 is going to be an incredibly exciting card and has potential to be the best card of the year. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.